Okay, so today we're gonna cover channels and hopefully mindset as well. Okay, channels. So in the big picture, channels are not, channel is just part of the functional human system. So in Chinese medicine, we learn to treat based on channels. So every acupuncture point that we learn, every herb that we learn, every formula that we make, all have something to do with the channels. So Chinese medicine in general, to me, is very, very channel centric. But to me, channel doesn't tell the whole story. Channels are representation of the entire functional human system. It's part of it. It's not all of it. So by treating channels, we're not really treating the entire issue, right? The entire person. So channels are very much like pain. Pain is a message. Pain is a representation of something that's not moving properly or something that's get locked up or something like that, right? So pain is an indication of something. So to me, channels are very, very similar. For example, I share that coming out of the brain system, right? There, from the combination of the brain condition essentially change our channel modes. And channel modes, there are 4 channel modes. In Western medicine, there are essentially 2 neurological modes, fight and flight and rest and heal. In Chinese medicine, we also have sleep and dissociation and pause. Okay, I'll cover that in more detail, but just from a big picture standpoint, I think that's important to know. Channels are not everything. In Chinese medicine, brain is actually not covered. So we have 14 channels total, 2 in the midline and 12 bilateral. Channels are scannable. They're microcurrents. And because they're microcurrents, they follow all the electrical rules. For example, needles provides a least resistant path, essentially, right? So that's why needles work, because these are currents. And they're scannable because they're currents, and this is actually far more reliable than pulse taking or tongue looking and the whole 9 yards. And I'll talk more about that later. And in channels, we often go directly to points, right? We have 365 points, and these are just the general points, and there are lots of hidden points, and other systems like tongue or tone acupuncture. There are even more points, right? So, and to me, they're not points. Okay? They're not just points. They're not lines either. They're like rivers. They flow, and sometimes they're wider, and sometimes they're narrower. Sometimes they flow faster. Sometimes they flow slower. So it's more like a contiguous river or circulation system. Okay? So the points again are more like cities along a river, and they do mean something. They are landmarks, but in terms of definite purpose or definite treatment uh, benefits, to me, that it's pretty far fetched, and I really don't see that in clinic, and yeah. And I actually have the benefit of being a new acupuncturist, for example. So I get to see patients that have been through many levels of treatments from various kinds of people, right? So essentially, I will get people coming into my clinic and that's been through pretty much all the famous acupuncturists in the region. And And what I gathered was, they were given treatment, they were given point protocol treatments, and still doesn't do them very, much good, which is pretty much what I see when I was in Chinese medicine school. So I do not follow all the point prescriptions at all. To me, they're at one point maybe somebody did something and they used this point and somehow it worked the way they expected and they documented. And then thousands of years later, we're still studying it as if we do something to this point, the same effects are going to happen. I don't see that. Okay. And channels actually change at the speed of thought. They do not change as what we learn in Chinese medicine. They change by the seasons. Like spring, the liver is vibrant, and no, channels change based on the speed of thought. That's why we can watch a movie and go through all the as if we're there. Right? We can think about somebody, or we smell something, and somehow we are transformed to a certain place and time. And when a dog start chasing me and try to bite me or something like that, I need to react right away. I cannot say, let's wait until spring. So there's a lot of misconceptions in Chinese medicine based on certain ancient texts. In ancient texts, they do mention that the channels change by the seasons. And I do agree, channels do change by the seasons. Why? Because seasons have their attributes. Certain seasons are more open, more warm, more cold, more windy, or something like that, right? And our entire system actually react to that. But in modern times, seasons are not as meaningful as 2,000 years ago. 2,000 years ago, the the house, when it's windy outside, it's windy inside. That's why there's, these, warnings and restrictions that, when a person, a pregnant, a lady who just, a mom who just delivered the baby cannot, wash her hair for at least, 4 weeks or a month or something like that. Why? Because, yeah, it is windy, it is cold. Um, and when somebody wash their hairs, especially in the old days, their hairs are long, you can't really dry them. There's no dryer at that time, right? So a lot of things have changed, and yet the precaution or the warnings are still present, right? So a lot of things don't really make that much sense when we think about it. So it's very, very important that we consider the context of a lot of things that we learn. And channels respond to touch, to vibration, to needles, of course. Right? So in general, I do not use needles at all. I only use needle when there's scars involved. Scars, because channels are electrical in nature. Scars, produce these higher resistance, tissues, and needles are perfect for breaking them up and reestablish the channel flow. Yeah. And the general concept of channels is really, to resolve blockage, right? Blockage resolution. Right? In Chinese, it's called tong. Right? So when there's no blockage, the channels flow smoothly, and there's no that's the best anybody can do, essentially. So channels are, channel issues to me are blockage issues, and blockage can come from many different places, right? It can be a thought, for example, I am not worthy. I need confirmation. I need, I need confirmation all the time, for example, or I am just not very good. I have no purpose in life. These are mental blockages that will absolutely block channels, or physical blockage, like for example, like C-section, hip replacement, appendix surgeries, or cancer surgeries, and open heart surgeries and stuff like that, or burns. So many things can happen to affect our channel at the physical level as well. Okay. And it is very important to take note of never, well, I would say 99.99% drain channels, because the easiest way to resolve pain is actually to have no energy. So channels are actually electrical energies, right? Electrical. For example, if I crush my thumb right now, okay, let's say I close the car door and somehow I jam my thumb, right away, the channel that goes to the thumb, which is the lung channel, stops, right? Why? Because, to reduce pain. So that becomes very, very important. Give me 1 second, I'll be right back. Okay, so unfortunately, a lot of in clinics, the easiest way to reduce pain is actually to drain channels. For example, there's a very, it's almost like a universal pattern. It's called, in Chinese medicine, it's called liver qi stagnation. Essentially, it's a liver channel that couldn't pass the chest area and cause a flood and have an access condition, what we call, and cause stomach issues, menstruation issues, basically any issues has some component of liver qi stagnation. And the real result and the real cause for this is actually some kind of a suppression or depression or the sense that I cannot thrive. Okay. But anyway, the conventional, how we taught in school to resolve liver qi stagnation is actually to needle what we call the liver 3, okay, which is basically in between the big toe and the second toe. And what this does is actually to drain the liver channel. Okay, it's actually the liver channel is supposed to flow from in between the big toe and the second toe, and all the way up through the chest into what we call the lung channel. Okay. So because there's a flood at the liver channel, so the conventional way to do this, what we taught, basically all acupuncturists are taught the same way, is to needle the liver 3. And liver 3 will actually very quickly drain the excess from the liver channel. Okay. However, when there is a access caused by the blockage at the chest, the channel that's supposed to receive the liver channel, which is the lung channel, becomes deficient. So on one side, we have a flood, and on the other side, we have a drought. Okay. So the draining method is to resolve the flood and ignore the drought. So over time, it has a detriment effect on the lung channel. Okay. So people would develop uncontrollable cough and stuff like that, right? And really, really weaken the lungs. So to me, this is very, very important to know, when a treatment works, what does it really mean? Okay. A treatment has to work long term, not short term, not just to reduce pain on the spot, right? But to truly address the underlying causes. And this is honestly what I see when I was working at the front desk in the acupuncture school. I see, people coming in with severe pain, they left with, greatly reduced pain, only to come back week after week after week, right? Why? Because they were drained, right? Very important fact, a very, very important thing to keep in mind. And pretty much what I'm going to cover are covered in this book. Okay, this book I mentioned in the previous presentation. This is the book that inspired me to go to Chinese medicine school. And it's called Tracking the Dragon. and it's by Dr. Janice Hadlock. And she basically wrote this book from experience. She was treating Parkinson patients. Parkinson patients have very, very specific channel flows. And over time, she was able to feel them. And from there, she developed a whole bunch of stuff. She uncovered to me the real essence of Chinese medicine in terms of the channel theory. So we can get the book from either her own website or Amazon. Okay, so this diagram again shows the channels are part of the functional human system. They're not the entire system. Okay, so do not just treat the channels, which is easy to manipulate on the spot. But to me, it makes no sense to just treat the channels. Okay, we have to treat the entire functional human system. So total of 14 channels. It start with the two individual channels, we'll call the Ren channel and the Du channel. They all essentially start from Ren 1, pretty much, okay, the perineum area. The Ren channel goes in the front and enter the mouth. And to me, it actually cycles internally back to Ren 1 and just continue the cycle, okay. The Du essentially is the same from the Ren 1 area, the perineum area, go through the back in between the skin and the spine and go up. During the daytime, okay, when we are awake, it actually enters the midbrain and come out of what we call yin tang, which is in between or third eye, in between our eyebrows, and again enter the mouth and then go inside and go back to the original point, and then just continue to circulate. Right? When we're asleep, this path actually goes to the top of the head and continue forward. Right? It doesn't go into the midbrain. This is how we sleep. And the best time to sleep is around 11 o'clock, when the Du channel is actually pushed down. The strength of the Du channel is actually reduced by the gallbladder channel. Okay, and that's actually the best time. That's a lot of times that's when we feel sleepy. But if we just like hang on, or we continue to scroll the phone to about 1 o'clock, then we can't sleep, because all of a sudden there's nothing to push down the Du channel anymore. So and then we have 12 bilateral channels, and we normally start with the lung channel. Okay, so the lung channel essentially goes from the upper chest area, okay, down to the thumb, and then it becomes the large intestine channel, okay, that actually goes back and across the mouth, and then become the stomach channel, okay? And these diagrams are actually from Tracking the Dragon by Dr. Janice Hadlock. And I'm not going to go into detail of, specific how they flows and some of the misassignments and stuff like that, okay? So, but all these can be felt, which is the real magic, okay? The real magic without the magic, actually. Our hands can be sort of like an MRI machine. Yeah. And what's interesting to note is actually the interaction between the flow between the large intestine channel and the stomach channel. Okay. So the large intestine channel comes in, okay, goes through the mouth, go to the other side. So it starts from the right hand, for example, in this diagram, actually go to the left side of the face, okay? And then it actually continues on the left side and becomes the stomach channel, okay? So it doesn't continue on the right side. So there's a switch between left and right when it comes to large intestine channel and stomach channel. And this is actually fascinating in my opinion. Okay, this is why when we walk normally, functionally, we're not, the same hand with the same leg, right? When we walk, we swing, right? Um, left leg, right hand, and vice versa in a very, very balanced way. But people who are not able to do this, for example, like Parkinson, um, or people in pain, and the stomach channels are actually not flowing well, or large intestine channels are not flowing well, they don't swing their arms. Parkinson, they just can't. Right? Their stomach channel is actually extremely rigid, so they can't even swing their arms. So these are very interesting to me. It's like, oh my gosh, when I first learned about this, it's like, oh my, this is so interesting. Another thing about the stomach channel is the stomach channel actually go, the normal direction, the function, I shouldn't say the normal direction. What does normal direction mean, right? The path that's good for digestion, and the functional path, I guess, of the of the stomach channel is actually to go down from essentially the third eye all the way down to in between the second and the third toe. Okay. However, large intestine channel can easily go the other direction, and this is how we're able to vomit, which for some people is like, why do we need to do that? It's actually a survival mechanism. Okay, imagine we ate something that's not proper. The best way to handle the situation is actually just to throw up, right? So the stomach channel has the tendency to go the other way. So when the stomach channel go the downward, go down, we're able to process the food, and go from swallow to the stomach, to small intestine, large. Basically we can go through the entire digestion flow, right? But when it counterflows, you want to throw everything out. Okay, and to me this is critical. This is very, very critical, right? um, and So in people with chemo, for example, right, they often cannot hold food. Okay. So if we know this mechanism, people cannot hold food, or they have these nausea, and they can't even smell, funny smells without, without kind of feel like they're gonna throw up, right? Check what? Check the stomach channel. Okay. Um, and Why? Because they want to go up. Okay, they want to resist something. The body is being fed with something that the body naturally, like, we want to get rid of, right? And the body's getting rid of function is actually to throw up, right? So the stomach channel is actually, again, it's, I don't know how this come about, right? But we do have a stomach channel that can be that can protect us by throwing things out. However, when it counterflows, it actually has a bypass path. Okay, so if the stomach channel just go up and then into the third eye, it will actually backflow and force into the midbrain path. Okay, and that will actually drive somebody crazy. That will actually drive somebody into a kind, normal person into somebody who is vicious and just completely, like, in a state of loss of consciousness. Okay. Um, so the stomach channel actually has a bypass path. Okay. So instead of a counterflow into the DO channel, into the third eye, it actually goes up and join the bladder channel from a bypass. Okay, so this is actually, if you look at a normal, when I say normal, it's the channels diagram that's being taught. The stomach channel actually comes down to the chin and actually go up, and then continue the downward path. Right, the go up path is actually a counterflow path. So this path is critical. Okay, this path, when it's blocked, okay, this person may experience sort of loss of consciousness, or violence or something like that. Okay. And the stomach channel goes down to the toes and then and comes back as a spleen channel. Okay. And um, spleen channel goes to the heart, and then down to the little finger. And then this is what we call the small intestine channel that actually goes somewhere here, but I noticed that it actually covers more of the face, and then it has to go through the eyebrow and then go to the next channel, which is the bladder channel. Okay. I actually, in my clinic, what I noticed was the spleen channel, the small intestine channel actually covers the entire eye and a good portion of the sinus as well. Okay, so people with eye issue, with sinus issue, a lot of times, especially in recent years, I've treated people like that, and they actually have these eyebrow tattoos or something like that. Sometimes doing eyelid tattoos. 20, 30 years ago, and the accumulation of this actually get them to be in trouble. Okay. So small intestine channel join the bladder channel. The bladder channel goes from, again, the third eye, again, it's bilateral. Okay, so there you can see the symmetry. Okay, and go down. So the bladder channel, what we call the UB channel, is actually the longest channel in the body. Okay, it covers a lot of grounds, right? Shoulders, neck, shoulder, upper back, lower back, the buttock, right? All the way down to the heel and the toe. Okay, so UB channel is actually a very interesting channel to note. Okay, yeah. So what I normally ask people to do is to say, run in place. Okay, so for example, people have sinus issues, right? They wake up every day with congestions, and maybe they have to use the CPAP machines at night, and huge snorer and stuff like that. Okay, what I ask them to do or to try is to say, okay, find a place where there's a mirror, look yourself in the eyes so you're absolutely level, and then essentially just run in place. Okay. And imagine when you run in place, it's almost like you're under a shower head. Okay. You have the water, which is, again, channels move at the speed of thought, right? So imagine this water or this chi or this energy just flows from the third eye, through the head, through the neck, through the back, through the buttock, on both sides, all the way down to the feet. Okay. And just, play play a couple songs, and allow your body to feel, allow your mind to be centered, allow the bladder channel to flow down. Okay, a lot of people, when they have congestion, or if they are going through a cold, they're stuffed or something like that, they open up very, very quickly. Okay. So to me, bladder channel is to be, it needs to flow well. Okay, otherwise we have a headache, we have very, very stiff necks and stuff like that. Okay. And the bladder channel actually turns into kidney channel. Okay, so in Chinese medicine, for some bizarre reason, kidney is so stressed, so hyped up. It's like, oh, you need to strengthen your kidney power, your whatever, right? And to me, kidney is important, but it's not, outstandingly important, more important than anybody in any other channels. Okay. I've treated a skin cancer patient, and his skin cancer was actually right at the bottom of his, I think it's his right foot. Okay. So what we call it kidney 1. Okay. And when I first talked to him, I was like, seriously? Skin cancer at the bottom of the foot where the sun, where you never be, where the sun don't shine, right? Turns out the skin cancer at this location is actually the worst skin cancer possible. Okay. It turns out this person was a football player when he was in his 18, probably 18 years old. He actually had double knee surgery. And the surgery site actually just cut off, just, just blocked the kidney channel. Okay. I saw him when he was roughly 70 something, I guess. But what's interesting was, so he had the skin cancer at the bottom, at kidney 1, had the surgery, and the surgery site just wouldn't heal. Okay. So it will heal somewhat, get infected, and then open up, and then it's been like a long time. And that's why, he was referred to me by another acupuncturist. And it turns out the junction between the kidney channel and the UB channel, which is right around the little toe, it was severely, severely blocked. So his kidney channel, so I actually did quite a bit of work on him. So I needled the scar because these scars creates these keloid tissue, which are higher resistance, which blocks the kidney channel. So I needle through the keloid tissue. I needle through the scar with very specific approach. Actually, I'll mention it later. But the real, one very, very apparent blockage was actually right at the junction of the kidney channel and the UB channel, which I actually needle through that as well. And once I did that, the wound actually healed within 2 weeks. So, so again, this is why I don't go by acupuncture points. Okay, things happen. Whatever happens in the body, follow the flow of the channels, follow the river instead of focusing on the cities. Yeah. So the kidney channel comes up and becomes what we call the pericardium channel. And pericardium channel is a very critical channel. Pericardium channel is probably why we have this heart feeling that we know we think about somebody, and the next second, within a second, the phone rings. Okay. It's like we know this person is thinking of us and this person is calling us. So the pericardium, which is around the heart, from my teacher and my own experience, is actually both a transmitter and a receiver. Okay, so we can, if we think about somebody, if we connect to somebody unconditionally, or if we hate somebody, it probably doesn't really matter, we will emit the signal out from our pericardium. Okay. How long can it travel? I don't know. Okay. It might be a few meters or a few yards. It might be thousands. It may be even, many thousands or even billions of miles. I don't know. Okay. But it also receives. Okay. So when I talk about channels, can be channel because they are microcurrents and they can be scanned. The way we scan this is actually through the pericardium channel. So essentially, there's right at the center of our palm. Okay, there's a acupuncture point. Okay, so this is the receiving point. Okay, so essentially, when we scan a channel, we would And this actually, the key thing is we got to be neutral. Okay, when we scan the channel, we have to be neutral. We cannot inject any energy. We cannot try to receive any energy. Okay, we can sense it, but we're not gonna take their energy in. Okay, at the same time, we're not pushing our energy out. So how do we do that, right? So the key thing is we have to stand properly. Our weights are evenly distributed along both of our feet. Our postures are as um, the best we can be. Okay, and our eyes needs to be level. It's very, very important that we do not look at our hand, because every time we look at our hand, we're actually projecting energy. Okay, I have demonstrated this in the class over and over again. It's like, okay, here's my hand, feel this, nothing. Okay, I'm scanning. And when I look at my hand, that there's, many students will actually like, oh man, that is weird. It is weird. Okay. Um, to me, our systems are not designed to receive other people's energy at all. Okay. I used to be fascinated with Reiki. Okay. So Reiki is, it's like, oh, I want to become a channel for a higher level of energy, and this higher level of energy goes through me, which is a channel, and out of my hand, um, to heal somebody else, right? Isn't that, this sounds fantastic, right? Isn't that great, right? But very quickly, um, when I was in that circle, I noticed things. It's like, no, we're not perfect channels. Okay, nobody is a perfect channel. There's no reason for us to act as a intermediate or channel for other people to receive energy. Right? So to me, it's very, very important that when we scan the channel, the whole concept is we're not giving, we're not receiving at the same time, but we're feeling at the boundary, and the boundary is right at the pericardium 8, PC8. Okay, and because this is an entire channel, whatever we're feeling at the palm, we can actually feel in the heart or in the pericardium. Okay, and this is how we can feel channels. And the real obstacle to feeling channels is actually our perception. Whether, the very concept that, oh, I cannot feel channels. There's no way I can feel it. You might be special, so you can feel it, but I can't. Okay, that is the real obstacle. There's no other obstacle. Okay, so in the clinic, it's actually really easy to feel. Okay, get somebody to lay down on the table. Okay, and scan, for example, the Ren channel. Okay, so start with the belly button, right? So here's the idea. Okay, eyes level, posture reasonable. Okay, and the hand is loose, not rigid. Okay. Imagine the hand is like a falling leaf. Okay, so it falls and falls and falls until it feels the current, or it's about, an inch or two, or maybe more, depends on how sensitive you are, above, let's say, the Ren channel. Okay, let's say we start with somewhere around the belly button. Okay, and then we move our hand upwards. Okay, towards the throat. Okay, then we stop right at the base of the throat, for example. Then we do this one more time. Then we kind of pull our hand up and then do this a few more times. Let's say we do this 3 times and try to remember how that feels. Okay. And then we do exactly the same thing, but in reverse. So we start with from the base of the throat down to the belly button. Yeah, again 3 times. And see how we feel, right? If we can feel a difference, we are feeling channels. Okay. To me, it's really that simple. Okay. And in my class, 9 out of 10 can feel channels. The only one who couldn't is because of preconception, okay, or just rigidity, or something that we need to resolve. Okay, so to me, this is a far more reliable way to do this. And once a person, acknowledge that, yeah, it is different, it is this and that, it is different, then I will actually lay on the table and say, okay, now feel my channel, feel my Ren channel, um, from the belly button to the base of my throat, and I will have two thoughts. Okay, I will first think that I am useless. Okay, I have no purpose. I am irresponsible. Okay, I'm the worst person in the world. I shouldn't even exist. Okay, and get the entire class to feel my Ren channel. Okay, so they can again feel 3 times if they want, right? And just remember how that feels. Okay, no judgment. Just remember how that feels. Okay, and then I would think, I am thriving. I have a purpose. I connect to loving kindness. I am a lighthouse. And ask them to scan again. And many of them are very surprised at the difference. Okay. Again, channels move at the speed of thoughts. Okay. And they are fully scannable. So imagine that we know how channel is supposed to flow. Okay. And we know how to scan them. And we have this entire MCA in mind. We know how to connect dots together. Then we'll be solving issues almost naturally. So this is how I operate in the clinic and in life in general. Okay, because my hand it's almost like an MRI machine. I can do something. For example, the stomach channel. Let's say the stomach channel doesn't go down properly. Let's say this person just went through chemo and couldn't eat for days. Okay. So I would scan this and find out, like, okay, this stomach channel not only doesn't want to come down, it's actually going up. Okay, or it's static. It doesn't want to come down, but it may not be going up, but it's very, very static. Okay, it doesn't really move one way or the other. So what I would do is I will have a pair of tuning forks, and I will strike the tuning forks and place each one on in between the big toe and the second toe. Actually, the second toe and the third toe. I'm sorry. So that's part of the stomach channel. Okay, the second and the third toe. And I will, allow the tuning fork to sort of die down, and then maybe do it one more time, or maybe two more times, and scan the channel again. And I've done this many times, and this will actually allow or kind of attract the stomach channel to flow down. And the person will actually, the stomach actually might growl, and the person will actually feel so much better. The nauseating the feeling, will subside tremendously. Okay. Or if I don't have my tuning forks, I would just put my finger on the same point. I'll just put a couple fingers right on the same points. Again, this will have very similar effect. Or I can put in needles, which I don't, because needles have their own problem. Okay, because needles, for a lot of people is painful. We intuitively avoid sharp objects, right? And needles are the sharpest of the sharp. So by knowing all these things, right, and using whatever means possible, right, whatever available tools I have on hand, a lot of times I just use my hand, which I trust a lot, right, and now be able to scan again and say, okay, does the stomach channel move? Okay, how fast does it move? How vibrant does it move? Right, then I can assess, further, right. Again, these are not protocols. Okay, these are really like, okay, try this and then see how it works. If the stomach channel doesn't move at all, which is I have encountered this as well, right? Then I'll actually go to the Ren channel, right? How suppressed and depressed and feel like it's completely, you know, hopeless this person is. If this person just feel like my life just has no meaning, there's no hope, and the Ren channel is really, really not coming up at all, the stomach channel doesn't follow either. Right? So this, again, this is a feedback system. Okay. Okay, so we cover the pericardium, and pericardium channel goes up. Yeah, pericardium channel goes down to, from the kidney and down to basically the middle finger through the center of the palm, and then what we call the triple burner um, comes up, and then joins the gallbladder channel. Okay, so these two channels are actually, to me, are sort of anxiety, stress, fight and flight. Okay. Um, so the story I share about the third generation acupuncturist, with high blood pressure, her scar is actually right here. Okay. So here is the GB34 to GB40. So her scar is right in between. Okay. Right along this path. Okay. So when we are in fight and flight, the blood pressure has to be high. It is a function. It is not a dysfunction. So a lot of times after a while, I cannot tell. Honestly, I don't have this concept of dysfunction very much. Okay? High blood pressure is not a dysfunction. High blood pressure is a reaction to certain condition. So it is a function. Okay. So when we are in fight and flight, for example, the dogs are gonna, is chasing me. My blood pressure has to be high. My gallbladder channel has to run differently. I have to be stiff. Okay. I have to brace myself. So when the gallbladder channel couldn't go down, it stays up in the left and right, in the temporal side of brain, right? So cause severe anxiety, hypervigilance, and the whole 9 yards. Okay. So for PTSD, for anxiety, for people with addiction, bipolar, and or even stomach issue, digestion issues, all the small intestine issues, all that, right? All these are related, in my opinion, to the gallbladder channel and the liver channel, and the underlying cause is the person is in fight and flight, and the channels respond to the person being in fight and flight, and subsequently, when we are in fight and flight, we don't digest, we can't eat, we don't sleep, right? When bullets are shooting over our head, none of these are important. Right? So it is so so knowing things from the very top, right? um, instead of learning all the details about, okay, this point does this and that point does that, we're missing the entire forest. Yeah, and the gallbladder channel. So in the clinic, when somebody come in, with very high tension, very high stress. Again, I used to do PTSD clinics. And after a while, the initial patients actually stayed, and they become they start to work on other PTSD people as well. So one of the things that we do, again, I use tuning fork, 128 hertz tuning fork, on what we call the GB41, which is in between the fourth and the fifth toe on both sides. Okay, and a couple tuning fork rounds normally get the gallbladder channel to come down from the head to the toes. Some people will actually resist and they will actually get a headache. But people who are okay with and have their gallbladder channel flowing down, they normally they will actually be in awe. It's like, wait a minute, this is so quiet. It's so quiet in my head. Okay. So gallbladder channel, when it's in the head, that's when the suffering loop just continues, okay, running rampant. Okay. When the gallbladder channel come down, there's no excess energy in the brain, and the loop actually runs so much quieter. And our the midbrain, which is the brain path that doesn't have the database, can be activated again. Okay. And the gallbladder channel becomes the mighty liver channel that goes back up, and then continue on with the lung channel. So the 12 bilateral channels join one another and just runs in and they run in a continuous loop. Okay. Liver channel is the mighty channel, is the most affected channel in the body, I would say. Okay. For good reason. Okay. And I would say majority of the people in the world have liver qi stagnation. Okay. Why? Because we go to school, from 5 years old. Right? We learn to be a good student by suppressing ourselves. Okay. It's probably for our own good, but we're still suppressing ourselves. Okay. So I will cover this in great detail on a segment, what I call liver qi stagnation. Okay. Once I have covered the entire MCA, because it's far more involved than just the channels. So that's essentially a very, very brief overview of all the channels. Please read Tracking the Dragon if you're interested in this. Again, Dr. Janice Hadlock's book should not be should not be just read it, with a sense of resonance rather than trying to remember all the details, because you can't copy any of these. Yeah. So again, channels can be affected by touch, pressure, and hold. Okay. From a physical standpoint, it can be a change by tuning forks, right? Needles, of course. Again, I pretty much only use needles when there are scars involved. And honestly, it's a huge, scars can have a huge spectrum. Okay? Like breast cancer scars, surgery scars are definitely scars. Open heart scars are definitely scars, right? But scars can be a dog bite, can be burned, okay, can be jammed by a car door, right? Can be a puncture by a nail, right? Can be a lot of things, okay? And scars can be actual physical scars where there's keloid tissue involved, or can be sort of emotional scars, and I will cover that in a story later. Okay. And scars needs to be needled along the channels. Okay. in Chinese medicine school, pretty much we learn to needle scars using a method what we call turtling. Okay. So imagine a scar is like a turtle, and we basically insert scars around the turtle shells. Okay. To me, that's not how uh, scars should be needle. Scars should be needles along the channels, Okay. Um, Again, there's far more detail in Dr. Janice Hadlock's book. From a different standpoint, from a brain standpoint, right? So these are the physical standpoint. From a mental standpoint, through all four brains, are we thriving? Are we loving? Are we kind? Okay, this affects our channel flow dramatically. Okay, this is how I'm willing and very open and actually seek out opportunities to have patients that are terminal. Okay, they have probably weeks, if not days, to live. I'm okay with them. Okay, because to me, they can still have a thriving thought. They can still be loving. They can still be kind. Okay, they don't need to be filled with injustice or righteousness or sadness or shame or anything along that line. Okay. They can still feel I have a purpose, and the purpose may be just to continue to love. Look at my condition. I continue to love. You can't turn that off. When a person, honestly, I've seen this so many times. Every time I experience this, because I can, the channels can be felt, and they know their whole complexion will change. Every time I experience this, I'm touched. I'm deeply, deeply touched. Okay. We all have these faculties, and we can use them. Okay. So with these channel ideas, let me cover a couple of stories. Okay. So this happens on August 1st, 2 weeks ago, actually. I was volunteering at a function. And at the end, we're enjoying dinners afterwards. And one of my patients, actually, she's a nurse, actually brought a nurse friend and said, John, you got to see this person. And this person was wearing sunglasses. And I said, you look okay to me. What's going on? He said, oh, my eyes were completely swollen for a few days or maybe a week. And when she took off her sunglasses, one eye was fine. The other eyes were basically shut. Okay. So I look at her, and I notice there's a little bit of something on her eyebrow, little bit, very, very faint. So I scanned that, and I felt like, it's not going through. And I asked her, it's like, do you have something happen on right around this area on your eyebrow? And she said, yeah. Um, when she was in kindergarten, I believe, she was on a swing and she was pushed, um, from the swing, and she landed, and it was all bloody, and she required 3 stitches. Um, so, and then what I did at that point was I just like used my thumb and I say, okay, um, just imagine this part of your eyebrow is uh, is so bright and peaceful. Okay. Um, and not hurting anymore. And I just keep stroking along this path, right? Um, and within about 5 minutes, the eyes actually open up, okay, visibly. And there are actually several people around me. They was like, huh, yeah, it's so weird. Um, and then I continued to do this, and this is along the small intestine channel. Okay, so the eyebrow injury actually blocks the small intestine channel, so there's a flood around this area. Okay. And not only do I open this up, I will also open up the small intestine channel, which connect to the bladder channel, and I continue to do that as well. Okay. And her eyes just keep opening up more and more. Okay. Then I start to feel the cheek. Okay, it just feels very, very dense and not supple as compared to the other side. Okay. So then again, I run my finger through that and I say, okay, you just keep this area as bright and loving and kind, and just try to embrace this, okay, the best you can. Um, and honestly, within 15 minutes, nobody can tell she had a swollen eye. They look the same. And not only that, this dense area on her left cheek turned into suppleness as well. Okay. And how was I able to do this? Again, exact same thing that we just went through. Okay. I have a good idea of how channel flows. And when I see something that's swollen, red, painful, that means there's a flood here. There's an access condition here. Okay. There's a flood here, and because the path is blocked, it couldn't move. So if we can move the path, if we can move the blockage, then all this energy will just go whoosh, right? The flow of water will actually go where it's supposed to go. Okay. Uh, no magic, even though the results um, were really magical. So that's essentially what happens from the channel diagram, right? So the small intestine channel has to go through the eyebrow. When it doesn't, it overflows the entire eye, it overflows the cheek area, okay? And the small intestine channel goes into the bladder channel in the back. So I actually asked her, she actually used a CPAP machine as well. So I actually asked her to run in place, every morning, every night, for 2 weeks and see how it goes. There's another case. I met this guy about 30 years old with 2 kids, um, and he told me he has phobia for elevators and airplanes. And at the same time, he's a surfer and he sells sailboats. It's like, how do you correlate those two? So obviously, it's not that he is fearful, right? I mean, to be a surfer and you know sail in the ocean by himself is definitely courageous, right? And then he told me that the he couldn't travel and couldn't go in the elevator for a long time, and until he saw a psychotherapist, and the psychotherapist asked him to prepare a worst case bag, okay, or worst case suitcase. So now he carries this worst case suitcase whenever he has to go on airplanes or get into an elevator, and he was fine to so he can he can he was able to travel with his family. However, he also mentioned that doesn't really do anything for his sense of hypervigilance. So he's the type of person he will go into any place, for example, in a restaurant, right? And he will have to sit facing the exit. He has to first figure out the exit, and he just has to find he has to sit facing the exit. Okay. And as he was talking and talking and talking, and I asked him this question. I said, "Have you ever experienced being confined and have no control?" Okay. And why? Because to me, that's essentially what airplane and elevators attributes are. You go in, door closed, and you have no control until something opens this up. Okay. He paused for a moment and then he said, "Yeah, I did. it turns out he had two older sisters. So when he was little, he was once wrapped up by his sisters in a blanket very, very tightly and left him there. And that was it. Okay. Confined and no choice, no way out. Okay. Hopeless, helpless. And then we actually had a really good laugh. And I said, well, you have two kids, right? I said, well, go home, find a big giant blanket and get them to wrap you up. Okay. And just have some fun with that. Because you're absolutely courageous, right? You have no, yeah, you're healthy, in every other aspect, right? The only thing that's tripping you is the sense of, this dramatic avoidance of being confined and no choice. Okay, but you're not that little child anymore. So to me, I see this over and over and over again. Okay, trauma, physically or emotionally, affect our functional human system because it has pain, right? And install these trigger database to protect us. And a lot of it, a lot of these trigger database, their function is actually to dissociate or to fear or to avoid, right, or to cause blockage, right? And the key thing in the clinic or for anybody else, right? Honestly, this really doesn't require another person because everything needs to get resolved internally anyway. The real work is really, are we safe now? Is it time to update our protection? Are we safe now? Okay. Most of us never ask that question. Because once the protection is installed, it just kind of runs itself, right? So in the we have this beautiful, beautiful protections. Okay, again, I have to stress that all our functions, okay, fight and flight, rest and heal, sleep, and dissociation are critical for our survival, critical for our well-being. Dissociation is so critical. It's honestly, it's such a gift, right? Um, Dissociation happens the moment that we are in severe pain. If I get bitten by a dog, at that very moment, I dissociate from the bite site. I have to. Okay. If I sprain my ankle really badly, I have to dissociate from my ankle in order to get to safety to resolve it. So these are built in mechanism to ensure the best chance for our survival or survive whatever we are experiencing. So all the modes, okay, the channel modes or the neurological modes are essential, just like the reptilian brain, the limbic brain, the midbrain, and the left and right brain are essential for us to function as a human being. So the key is really to fully understand this and say, okay, I am going through a period of time where I dissociate from my thumb, for example, or dissociate from my scar site. For example, if I have colon cancer, okay, and there's surgery and everything else, there's huge amount of dissociation happening, huge. Okay, or if I got burned, there's dissociation right away. The key is to go through that period of time where I find ways to resolve these conditions, then reassociate. Same thing with fight and flight. If I'm in danger, I have to be in fight and flight. But once that danger subsides, can we go back to rest and heal? That is the key, right? That is really the essential question for PTSD. PTSD is in constant fight and flight, hypervigilance. The bullets never ever stops. And it's a functional response to whatever this internal trigger is. Okay, so to me, PTSD is not a disorder. It's a functional response to something that we need to resolve. Then the system can go back to rest and heal. Okay. So this kind of covers everything I want to talk about regarding channels. It's 8:15 already, so if I continue the mindset, that will probably be another hour, which is probably too long. So let me pause for a while and see if there's question or comment, or maybe you have your own experience that we can somehow map to this. So I'm gonna, I'm gonna stop, and if you can, um, anything that you can share, please just open the mic.
Yes, thanks, John, for sharing. Yeah, I just remember the when I was actually doing the acupuncture, right? Definitely, like they just kind of like leak out the chi from my from the point, right? Today I learned actually affecting the lung channel. So I guess it's like I guess I'm still recovering from the from the treatment, so to speak. Another thing I learned today is like I definitely had high blood pressure, right? So knowing that is connecting to the flight and fight response is I guess, a newfound connection with my high blood pressure. So thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah.
Yeah, if you don't mind, because I know you, I I can dive in a little bit deeper. Would that be okay?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Um, so Albert had a bicycle accident, right? So he was sitting,
Hmm.
you know, behind his dad. His ankle or somewhere around the ankle, right, actually got caught in the spoke, right? Um, and afterwards, he was actually, instead of embraced and pampered, he was actually scolded, right? So, so that one incident actually results in two protection trigger installation at least. Okay, so there's dissociation from the injury site, right? And there's further dissociation or further triggers installed to um, to basically live through that period of time. Okay, so so these two things in combination, cause something temporarily, right? Because the gallbladder channel cannot go down properly. Let's say if it's right around this area, right around the ankle. Um, so this will up your blood pressure because you'll be in
Mm.
fight and flight. So this could be chronic, right? I mean, if you can imagine, so you'll be more vigilant, which is probably a good attribute to go through school and to interact with people, and so you'll be more observant and stuff like that because you'll be more vigilant, right? But the downside is you'll be more vigilant at the same time,
Mhm.
right? So all these can be taken into consideration. So this is, to me, it's more than just physical aspect, right? Yeah.
Totally.
Interesting, huh? Yeah. When we connect all the dots, it's like, oh wow, every life is almost like a miracle, right? So to me, constant association might be necessary. Okay. Um, so analogy is when we are hurt, okay. Um, people who, for example, you have an ankle injury and you want to forget about it. Okay, not just the physical pain, but the emotional pain as well. Right. Um, we have a really good mechanism to do that, and it's called dissociation. Right. Dissociation essentially is it's like in our brain we have a Google map of every parts of our body. Okay, from head to toe, every parts of our body. Okay, so dissociation is like we black out certain parts of our body, then we don't have that map. And if we don't have that map, we actually don't feel it. Okay, this is actually very interesting. Let me share this one story of one of my patients. So she said she had neuropathy on her toes, okay, on her feet and toes, and I was using, I saw her and I used tuning fork on her toes, on her calf, on her knee, on her pelvis, on her ribs, on her shoulders, and just continue to do this 2 3 rounds, and her toes feelings definitely get better and stronger every time. Okay, so I said, well, you so that was very interesting to me, right? Because if she does have neuropathy, then the improvement shouldn't be that fast. Okay. And then turns out she's a real estate agent, and she wears her high heel because she needs to be professional. But the high heels were killing her. Okay. And sometimes she has to stand for hours to present or to take her clients, see places and stuff like that, right? So it was very painful, but she was able to do it. How does that work? Right. So to me, the answer is very simple: dissociation. She dissociates from her toes, so she doesn't have to feel the pain. Isn't that great? And over time, she's like, I can't feel my toes. Her entire feedback system, right, is actually honoring her condition by saying, okay, this is painful. Let's forget about it. Let's dissociate from it. Right? So today, what she's doing is actually to brighten or to imagine her toes and to really wiggle them and to rub them, to baby them, and um, just to enjoy them, to welcome them back to life. And when she still needs to wear those high heels and just say, okay, I'm going to go into this dissociation mode for as long as it's needed. But once I'm in my car, I'm going to kick off my high heels and wiggle my toes and welcome them back to life. And that was it. So again, this is why I'm saying dissociation is not a problem. It's never a problem. It's the chronic dissociation that eventually creates a dysfunction. But it's the dissociation itself is not an issue. Yeah. So wiggle your toes, Albert. Get your channels down. Any other comments? Okay. If not, we'll continue next week. will really cover the mindset, okay, which is critical. Why? Because to me, the whole MCA is actually interconnection and integration of many different things. And the more we integrate, the more we interconnect them, the more they become a coherent system, the better it will be, right? And it is a process, but it is a highly rewarding process. So so that's kind of what I want to share in the mindset section. Yeah. Okay, we got a couple of chats going on. Okay, all right. If there's no comments or feedback, we'll see you. We'll meet again next week. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. Thanks, Angie.